Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier, and today we're excited to welcome an iconic Golden Globe and Emmy-nominated actress. She has over 160 credits to her name. She's the author of Morgan Fairchild's Super Looks. She starred in such shows as Flamingo Road, Falcon Crest. She's also the co-host, along with her sister Catherine Hart, of the new Two Bitches from Texas podcast. Please help us welcome Morgan Fairchild. Morgan, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys. Good morning.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, well, we have a lot to cover, but I like to start by going back. You're originally from Texas, and the story on your site is that your mother put you into acting when you were too shy to give a book report in class. So I have to ask first, what was the book? Was it even something that you wanted to do?
I don't remember what the book was. It's only, I don't know how many decades ago. The thing was, I was one of those kids that was always kind of, teachers loved you. I was an advanced placement. I always got straight A's, and I was like, so shy, I never said a word. So teachers loved me. But this one teacher wouldn't let me do a written book report. She insisted on oral book reports. And I was so shy. I stood in front of the class 3 days in a row, and nothing would come out. And my mother, coming from a family with attorneys and debaters, it's like no child of mine is going to be incapacitated by shyness. And so she enrolled us in what was called drama classes back then to bring me out. But Catherine loved it and, just had a great time every day, every Saturday. And I would throw up every Saturday before we had to go. So the thing was, after these drama classes, one Saturday morning we got up and my mother was reading the paper and she says, "Oh, the Junior Players Guild is having auditions today. Moosie, you probably went through something like this." Yeah. We should go. And my sister's, "Oh, yes, let's go." And I'm like, no. Anyway, so we go to this auditorium, and Junior Players Guild was a very well-respected, really wonderful children's theater group in Dallas, and great facility that they had, put on great shows. Anyway, it was quite daunting. So we're sitting in the back of the auditorium all day watching kids improvise these auditions. And, you're sitting there thinking, and Moosie, I know you've gone through this, I could do better than that, but I won't. I'm not going down there. And, but then my sister says, "Oh, I want to audition." And it's like, I knew if I didn't go down and audition, I'd get yelled at all the way home. And so
Right.
I like to say, I have a career now because my fear of the stage was second only to my fear of my mother. Well, and then this is the difference that an adult can make in a child's life. That lovely director gave us parts in that little production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and they weren't big parts, but it was something. And that's recognition from an adult just made such a difference. And, if I hadn't gotten anything, then I don't know if I would have ever had the nerve to go back. But that recognition and encouragement from an adult can mean so much to a kid starting out, or any of us really, but especially starting out, that, maybe you've got something there.
Okay, so I got to ask you about this. This is so interesting to me. I never knew this. You were Faye Dunaway's body double for Bonnie and Clyde. Is this correct?
Not exactly a body double. I was her double. Body double is usually for nude scenes, and that wasn't it. And a lot of the driving scenes or anything where it's far enough away, you can't be. It's a silhouette, or it's not lit well, or it's too far away. It's not Faye. It's me.
Right, like a second. What do you call that? Second unit shots.
One of the scenes where it's easiest to see it's me, there's a scene that's actually very funny in the film where they're making an escape, and she's driving, or anyway, I think she's driving, and they almost hit a truck coming at them with a ton of chicken coops on it, and all the chickens go flying. Anyway, if you look closely, because it's shot from the back of the head, it's me, and my hair is a different color blonde than Faye's and longer. But, because you're looking at the chickens, you're not looking at me.
Yeah, it's a trick.
As you know, you sit around on the set a lot waiting to shoot and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was there for a lot of the major scenes. There, some of the Ring of Fire stuff and a bunch of the different ones, the escape from the motel where they all got shot up. I was there all night with that one. It was so fun. I'd already been doing theater for a few years, and this was what made me fall in love with movies. Arthur Penn was the director, was terribly kind to me, and I would kind of watch his kids when they were on the set. And Gene Hackman was just
Yeah.
lovely to me. Warren was wonderful. Faye was wonderful. It was quite a learning experience. And then Estelle Parsons, years later, when I was doing Roseanne, I said to Estelle, "You won't remember me, but I was that kid on the set of
Yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde."
Now, Gene Wilder also
Oh.
was in that film.
Well, I was just going to say that, there was this young actor. He had one big scene, and he was so nervous while they're waiting. And I was sitting around talking to him all day, while he was nervous getting ready for a scene. And that was Gene Wilder. Well, they get dumped by the side of the road as soon as they say, finally they say, "So what do you do for a living?" And it's like, "Funeral director." And it's like Bonnie and Clyde. It's like very superstitious, dump him on the side of the road.
Yeah, Bonnie was like, "I don't like it. We're getting out of here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask about, speaking of doubling, if this is true or just something I read on the internet. Were you also a double for Jane Fonda and Barbarella?
No, no, no. I wasn't in the film industry yet. Then what happened was Jane was doing the PR for Barbarella, and for some reason she couldn't get out. I forget why. She couldn't get out and do it. So they had me do the Barbarella thing in Dallas and some of the outlying areas there, the surrounding area. So they had me in the whole Barbarella costume, which kept falling apart because it was jerry rigged, and had me going around somewhere. Someday I did have a picture of me in that thing, but I don't know where it is now.
Oh, so cool. But I have to ask also, like, what prompted you to change your name to Morgan Fairchild? I read about the David Warner film, but what made you want to change it to begin with?
Well, I started working very young. I worked under my maiden name. Then I worked under my married name. I got married very young. Then I was getting divorced, and I didn't want to change it back to my maiden name. And I was damned if I'd work the rest of my life to put his name in lights. So I just thought, this is my moment to just change everything and become who I really want to be. And I had always loved that name Morgan since I saw the movie. So I had that. And then a friend of mine who actually had been secretary for my ex-husband actually introduced us, unfortunately, but I forgave her. We were having pizza over at a place by SMU. Gordo's Pizza Parlor used to be there. And she said, because, when you're trying to make up a fake name, you want something that doesn't sound too weird or like a strip, or an ex-stripper or something, And so you're trying to come up with something that is different, but not. Anyway, she said, "How about Fairchild?" She said, you are a fair child. And she said, it's not such an unusual name that you stop and say, "Whoa." But at the same time, I don't really know anybody named Fairchild. But as soon as I heard it, I knew that was me. That was me. As soon as I heard Morgan Fairchild, I knew that was me. That's who I wanted to be. And I decided to become her.
So you went to New York from Dallas instead of Hollywood. Was that because of Search for Tomorrow, or did you move there prior to landing that role?
No, my sister was going to Juilliard, and so I knew somebody in New York, and my ex-husband was trying to get me to go to Los Angeles for his own spurious reasons, and so I decided to go to New York.
We're gonna start designing the questions so they don't somehow bring up your ex-husband in your story.
Well, at that stage of my life, it was a big thing,
I hear you.
Moving on. So I
Yeah.
go to New York and I get Search for Tomorrow. And and that was kind of a big eye opener. And just I was so fortunate to work with such wonderful people, because back then, at least, New York soap operas, which is where most of them were at the time, they used a lot of great theater people in the soaps. And so, I was working with Larry Haynes, who was, I think a Tony nominee or winner for Promises, Promises. He's doing Promises, Promises.
Oh,
Nigel Higgins was doing Shenandoah. All these great actors and wonderful people, a lot of whom, went on to do other things. I think Alec Baldwin and Demi Moore were on Search after I was. It was always a
oh,
great training ground for young actors, and also a great place for older actors, especially in New York, who wanted, like with Larry, he did all the voiceovers, every voiceover in the world. He's doing Broadway. But, I think Search paid for the country house. So
Right.
Oh, you were part of the original I Love New York campaign?
I think so. Back in the day when it was first getting going, I think we all did commercials and stuff for it. Yeah. It was great fun. I love New York. I loved living in New York. I'm a ballet nut. I lived across the street from Lincoln Center for years. I love New York. So I was really happy to do something to promote New York.
I remember those commercials very well. I was, I'm from New York. I know you can't tell from the accent, but I remember those commercials very well.
I'd never know, honey. I would never know.
So you originated the role of Jenna Wade.
Wade.
Yeah, in Dallas. And two other actresses played the same role after you?
I don't know. One actress may have played it in some kind of miniseries ahead of me, and then they got Priscilla Presley to come in and play it after me. I don't know if somebody else played it after Priscilla. But when I was doing Jenna, the show wasn't on the air yet. Nobody knew it would be a huge hit.
Okay.
So it was, it was fun. I mean, that cast just so funny. I mean, Larry and I had a scene together where we're both just chewing the scenery like crazy. And Patrick is the sweetest man in the world, and Linda Gray. I mean, we're all still friends and everything. I just saw them a few weeks ago at a Dallas
Oh,
reunion,
nice.
Oh yeah, Charlene was telling
Oh
me.
yeah, Charlene was
She
there
was
too.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, just adorable. I mean, lovely, lovely people.
You know what's crazy? You did what, one episode of Dallas?
Hmm.
Because you did all these other things too. But when I think of you, Dallas came to my mind. Actually, I said it out loud. I was, talking to somebody about we were going to talk to you, and
Oh, well,
so
that's
you,
nice.
you
Yeah, I
left
mean,
quite an impression with one episode.
oh, thank you. I get that a lot when I'm out, doing these reunions and stuff. It's nice to hear, especially because the show wasn't a big hit. It wasn't even on the air yet when I did it, and so it's nice to hear that people remember you from it.
Sure.
You try, as you know, Moosie. You try with every one of them. You give it your best. You don't know if it's going to land or not.
Yeah, of course.
Well,
Of
one thing
course.
it did is, Flamingo Road. You were nominated for Golden Globe for that, and we recently had on Andrew Stevens. Flamingo Road, you acted alongside Stella Stevens. So, what are your memories of that show?
Oh, I love that show. Again, I felt so fortunate to get to work with people I had grown up watching. I mean, I remember seeing Stella on Ben Casey when I was a kid and just thinking she was just the most gorgeous thing. And Barbara Brush, the same thing. Every time
Mhm.
I'd see her in a movie, she's so gorgeous. And I remember my mother was just so happy that someone like Barbara Brush was going to play my mother, because we don't know until the story goes on that she's not my real mother. Because she's, oh, she's such a lady, she's such a lady. And of course, Kevin McCarthy. I loved Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All these people I grew up watching. Howard Duff, I mean, was hysterically funny. And they would put us out on the PR tours together, and people would say, you guys should be doing a nightclub acting. So he was great. It was just, you felt so lucky to be working with people that you had grown up watching. You felt accepted. You felt like you were actually in Hollywood now.
The showrunner of Flamingo Road, which was Rita Lakin, had stated that it was canceled in order to make room for a show written by the son of a network executive. Had you heard that at the time?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It was quite a shock. It was one of those Hollywood stories. We had been picked up. We were getting ready for the new season. I bought a
Wow.
house. John Beck bought a house based on the fact we were picked up for our third
Mhm.
season. I'm literally in the limo on the way to New York to the airport. I'm going on the way to the LAX. I'm on the 101, the 405 going to LAX. And I get a call, back when only limos had phones, from Entertainment Tonight, asking what it felt like to have the show canceled, or one of the shows. What does it feel like to have the show canceled? And I was like, what? What?
Oh
I'm
no.
on my way to New York. What do you mean? Had to turn the limo around and go home.
And that's how you found out, by
Uh,
Entertainment Tonight.
Wow.
Wow.
I
It
think it
seemed
was Entertainment Tonight. It was one of the
one
one
of
of the
those.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's somewhat of a rite of passage for an actor to make a large purchase after, finding out they booked something that never ends up happening. But yeah.
Moosey, do you want to talk? Should we talk?
Yeah, let's talk, please. Are you asking me if I need like a little therapy based on this or? So
I needed therapy, I'll tell you.
yeah, I'm sure. I know that's heart-wrenching, and that,
Yeah.
and then people around you will say, yeah, well, welcome to Hollywood. Well, I've been welcomed. I don't know. Yeah, this shouldn't happen.
Well, it was just such a shock because this is pre-Cosby NBC. We were a big hit for them, so it was a real shock.
Right.
So,
Jonathan brought up Andrew Stevens. Speaking of Andrew Stevens, you did a film called The Seduction. Can you
mhm.
tell us about that film? I remember this.
Oh, well, I was kind of interested in it because it was a iconoclastic at the time. It was the first time a film had kind of been done about a stalker of someone who's famous.
Hmm.
In this case, she was a newswoman. And so a fan stalking someone. And also, what I really liked, it was the first time that the woman turns the tables and goes after him. And there's scenes where I'm chasing him through my house, shooting at him toward the end. And although I did say to the director, guys, you keep having me miss him with a shotgun. I'm
Yeah.
from Texas. This is getting embarrassing. To miss him all these times with a
Right.
shotgun. But it was great fun and like I said, kind of iconoclastic at the time of the story matter. And I liked, the fact that the woman becomes empowered by it and everything.
Yeah.
And again, Andrew was great to work with. Actually, we're doing a reunion, a seduction reunion at the
Oh,
Chiller
wow.
Theater Festival coming up in October in Parsippany. We're doing one of the big cons. We're doing, I think it's Chiller Theater Fest or something. Anyway, and we're doing a big seduction reunion there. We've got Colleen Camp and Andrew. And so it'll be great to see them. Although I saw Andrew at the Dallas reunion recently too.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
In 82, Harper's Bazaar named you one of the 10 most beautiful women in the world. So what's that feeling like when you saw that? And what did that do for your career right after?
I don't know if it did anything for my career.
Really?
I mean, obviously, any woman would be flattered. It's nice to hear that, especially when you've grown up as a shy, fat kid with Coke bottom glasses and white hair and white eyelashes, and nobody paid any attention to it. To have that happen, it was a nice compliment.
Morgan, you've worked with some legends. Let's talk about Paper Dolls, which had Lloyd Bridges, which and that show wasn't given a fair chance. That's my opinion. What was that show like? What was that experience like for you?
Well, thank you for saying that. I love Paper Dolls. That's my favorite of
Hmm.
the series I did. Len Goldberg had called me up and said he wanted me to do this show. It was a 2-hour movie pilot, and I'd come up Flamingo Road, and I didn't want to get stereotyped, and so I said to him, Len, I don't want to do another soapy kind of show right now. And he said, oh, no, let me send you the script. Da, 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 da. So I said, fine. He said, okay, let me see the script. So he sends me the script, and I called him back and I said, Len, she has no storyline. She's just on the phone all the time. It's for those who didn't ever see the thing. It's all about the fashion industry. And Nicolette Sheridan was playing kind of a Brooke Shields character, run amok, and Terry Farrell was playing this other young, kind of innocent model, and I'm playing the agent, kind of Eileen Ford, run amok. And so, but all I had were scenes on the phone. So I said, I don't have a storyline. And, I don't want to commit to this with no story. And Len says, I promise if you just do it, we'll get you a storyline. And ABC has promised, because they know it takes a year to launch a soap. They went through this with Dynasty. They promised they'll leave us on for a year. And I said, okay, finally, I said, okay. Anyway, so then I get into these things and I start just ad-libbing these damn phone calls, and I'm throwing in all kinds of stuff, and and they leave it, and so they leave it in, which is I'm having a great time with it. But I remember Len had called me up and said, oh, Morgan, I realized you don't have any exterior scenes in New York, so you don't have to go to New York. And I'm like, Len, you've got to get me to New York. I said, yeah, I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was a kid, and I still love paleontology, paleoanthropology. I said the biggest paleoanthropological exhibit ever at the Museum of Natural History, all of the famous hominid fossils are going to be there. you got to get me to New York for this exhibit, for the fossil exhibit, not what he's expecting from the sex symbol. And so, so anyway, so we get there and I get to go to the exhibit. I'm so excited. And I'm walking around and everything is under plexiglass squares. So one of them was this very primitive skull with these big cheekbones and a ridge on the head. And these two guys are looking at it, kind of circling. They've got little cards, on the side, but the cards aren't really that great. They don't really tell you if you don't know what you're looking at. You wouldn't know what you're looking at. So these two guys are saying, "What is that thing on its head?" I said, "Well, that's a sagittal crest, and that's where you see the big cheekbones. These are herbivore, and it's a grinder, and so all these muscles go up through those big cheekbones, and they attach here because it's a lot of grinding force." And they said, "Where'd you see that?" And I said, No, I'm just telling you, it's not in the cards. And they said, "Aren't you Morgan Fairchild? Where do you know this shit?" So I was like, but it was that. And then, just fun. And because they let me ad lib a lot. And it was, again, great actors, Brenda Vaccaro and Lloyd Bridges, who I'd also done, before this, I'd done Love Boat with Lloyd. And just, just a wonderful, wonderful cast. Dak Rambo, my great friend Dak Rambo. And just, so many wonderful actors, Jennifer Warren, and just, wonderful, wonderful people. Brenda's a hoot.
Speaking of fun shows and cast, I want to ask about the zany adventures of Robin Hood. George Segal and Roddy McDowall, two real greats. How much fun was that to do?
My God. Well, Roddy and I were old friends already from this miniseries I'd done with him and Natalie Wood back in like 78, 79. So we were great friends. And it was fabulous. And, Moosie, didn't you work with George?
Yeah, but I don't remember.
But he's so funny. He's so funny and just crazy to work with. But it's one of those things, again, being a blonde in this business, you kind of get used to this, but it's, we were doing our first big scene walking along this river in our, medieval garb. And we finished the scene and George turned and he looked and he said, "You're funny. I didn't expect that." That's like,
it's a compliment.
George I always was.
It's a compliment, but somehow sexist at the same time. Not really. I'm sure he was great, but I'm just
not only sexist. It's if you're a pretty girl in the business, nobody thinks you can do anything. But that was kind of the key for me in Hollywood, because I grew up in the theater, and my sister and I were lucky enough to grow up working as a director, actor, a lot of things, with a wonderful, brilliant actor who was also a great improviser. And so we learned early improvisation and comedy. And so when I got to LA, I started realizing if you could get me, if it was a sitcom and they wanted a glamour girl for a comedy, if you could get me in the room, I would probably get it, because they didn't have many glamour girls who could do comedy. I didn't realize. So so we were very lucky that way. But no, it was great fun. It was great fun. We were shooting in Kent, down by Tunbridge Wells. And it was great fun. We had like this castle, like a 12th, 13th century castle. And, just everybody done up in their stuff. Janet Sussman was hot off of Nicholas and Alexandra. And we had all these great British actors at the time. And Tom Baker, who they told me is Doctor Who, and I didn't know what Doctor Who was, so it was great fun. But I remember a friend of mine who'd been a reporter for some of the soap magazines I'd met when he first came over from England, Robin Leach, called me up and he said, "Darling, I hear you're shooting at a castle." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And he said, "Oh, I had this idea for a show. Could I come over and shoot at your castle?" And I said, "Well, let me ask the producer." So I got it set up so Robin could come shoot at my castle. And they had rented these lovely homes for George and me out in the country, and and acres of sheep and stuff. So Robin came over and shot all, and that was the pilot of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
No kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Fantastic. Yes. Another show that I loved and was North and South, huge event show. I remember, very popular miniseries, so many great stars in it. So what was that production like?
Oh, wow. I mean, that was quite daunting, because I'm not one of the big stars in it. I'm in and out. And I mean, we shot that for maybe a couple of years. And I was doing other shows. I forget which show I was doing, maybe Falcon Crest or something. Anyway, so we were shooting around, but it was great fun. I remember when I was getting fitted for the clothes and stuff. And finally I said to them, but where are the corsets? And they said, oh, well, none of the other ladies would wear the corsets. I said, oh, no, you must wear the corset to stand and walk. You move totally different for the period if you're in a corset. And so they're very excited because somebody agreed to wear the corset. But it was lovely. I remember when we were shooting in Charleston, I was David Walper was flying, the producer was flying us in on his jet. And it was Hal Holbrook and his makeup man, awesome, a big a makeup guy, and Dick Smith, I think, and Elizabeth Taylor. And so we're all, on the jet heading to there and, get there. And there's all this big fanfare getting off the jet and all this. We got Elizabeth Taylor. And so the next day I come down and in full regalia, and they had put all this dirt down on the streets and everybody's in full regalia. And Hal comes down with made up as Lincoln. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing to look down that street and see Hal as Lincoln and see everybody. I mean, you were really transported back in time. It was a kind of a magical experience. And then, the couple of the cast members fell in love with each other and stuff. So it was always great as I would come back and forth to the different time periods I was coming in and see how their romance was progressing.
Right. What a great experience. So you brought up Falcon Crest, and I'm going to blow past Roddy McDowall and Natalie Wood because I love both those people so much. Like I miss Roddy McDowall's and Natalie Wood, but I'm going to go past that. So Falcon Crest, you came in did you come in mid-season on Falcon Crest?
No. Can I tell one Roddy story though?
Please.
It has to do with the castle again, with the Robin Hood. So we're sitting there one day in the long, great hall of this like 12th century castle and the big trestle table. And there's a young girl working for PR. And she comes, I've been assigned to ask all of you to get your bios, So I give her my bio and I'm sitting there. I'm sitting behind. Roddy is at one end and I'm at one end and she's kind of sitting there facing him. And I'm at one end and Roddy's at one end. And he's in his Prince Valiant wig and the whole thing. And she starts talking to him and just about, oh, and did you, and what is your name? Roderick McDowall. Roddy, can you spell that? Yes, dear. And on and on. And you were born in England. Yes, dear. And, but you came to America. Yes, we came during the war. She says, oh, Vietnam. And he says, no, there were wars before that, dear. And so it's like, and it goes on. And, then I did this and my friend Flicka, and I did, he's listing all these classic movies. And how do you spell that? And finally he says, and then I got to my teenage years where I was not cute. And so I was doing Broadway. I didn't have time for sergeants. How do you spell sergeants? We're going back and forth. And finally he said, and then I did Camelot. And then I did Cleopatra. And, and then, it's like, oh, and how do you spell Cleopatra? And blah, 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 blah. And finally he hits him. Then I did Planet of the Apes. And she says, oh, I know that one. He came to, and he's rolling his eyes, where she's writing, he's looking at me, rolling his eyes. And finally he comes over and he says, my entire career reduced to an ape.
Cornelius, the character, was his name. Yeah. One thing about the ape prosthetics is you could see the eyes. And Roddy McDowall, I just believed everything he did. If you see it.
Actually, my favorite Roddy McDowall role is in Fright Night.
Mm-hmm.
He was fantastic.
Well, my former boyfriend was a cameraman on Fright Night, so I was over there on that set a lot. And that was great fun. That was, I'm a vampire nut. I love Halloween. You can see my little Halloween stuff back here. I love Halloween. So that was great fun. I love vampires.
So you had a little reunion with Roddy McDowall then.
Oh yeah. Well, he had these great dinners at his house all the time. So you would go over to his house for dinner and you never knew who you were going to run into. Right. It was always this eclectic grouping of people that were fascinating. Vincent Price was over there a lot with his wife, Coral Brown, and they were both hysterical, great storytellers that have you on the floor laughing for hours.
Gee, that doesn't sound too interesting. Wow. Okay, so Falcon Crest. This is another one. So you came in halfway through the run?
No, I came in, was it 84, 85? I came in, they were up against Miami Vice and they wanted to jazz up the show. That's what they told me. So they
Okay.
wanted me to come in and do that. So, and I was interested because it was a storyline about incest survivor. And it was the first time, at that time, a show called something about Amelia had come out about incest,
right.
which was a big breakthrough at the time. But this was the first time addressing the adult repercussions of incest. And
Right.
so I was very interested in doing that.
Did you watch Falcon Crest before you came on?
No, frankly, a lot of these shows, I didn't see them much because I was always working. I was
Yeah.
working at night. And some of this was back even before people had, recording stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of getting into it when the recording things
Yeah.
when I was on it.
I
So,
remember the if you missed it, you missed it days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was another great cast. I mean,
Uh,
just to work with Jane Wyman. I mean, my first day
Mm,
on the set, because I'm an old movie buff, the first
sure.
day on the set, I went over to Cesar Romero and said, "So, Cesar, tell me, what was it like working with Marlene Dietrich in 33 and Devil is a Woman?" Yeah. And they would, a lot of the old stars, they were great storytellers. And so they would tell you great stories forever.
Yeah, I bet.
And Jane Wyman was just wonderful. She was wonderful.
So you felt just welcomed in, even though you came in the middle like of the run.
Yeah, by welcomed by the people that I wanted to be welcomed by. Some of the
Okay.
people were not so thrilled to have a new blonde on the set. But I
Yeah.
remember one day I'm playing Richard Channing's lawyer, David Selby, and I hadn't seen Angela's yet, Jane Wyman's character. So I have a scene with Richard in the hospital, and as I'm leaving, she comes in, and so in rehearsal, I made some wisecrack as I left, and it was totally silent. And then Jane laughed, and then everybody laughed. And somebody grabbed me and said, "Didn't anybody ever tell you don't make jokes on the set when Jane is here?" And I said, "No, nobody told me." I said, "But she laughed." So,
Right.
but so anyway, but so they, it's like, "Oh, don't ever mention Reagan." And I'm saying, my mama raised me right. I'm not going to bring up an ex-husband. But one day we're sitting there all wrapped up in our finery. I forget why. We were shooting at Warner Brothers, and all the no, I guess it was CBS Radford. Anyway, all the stage doors were open, and it was like February. It was cold, so we're all sitting there in our director's chairs waiting to work. And Jane leans over to me and says, "Did I ever tell you any stories about Ronnie?" And I said, "Well, no, you didn't." So she's like talking away. But it's like one day I came down because the Lorimer didn't give us much wardrobe budget. So I would always wear my own clothes on the show. And so I would save them a fortune. But I came in one day for some party scene, and I had this red leather mini skirt suit with, the big shoulder pads and the tight, trenchy leather cinched up and everything. I had my big bangles, my big 80s bangles, my big earrings and big collar, Wendy Geld stuff. And I walk on the set, and somebody comes over and says, "Oh my God, Jane's going to hate that. You got to go change." And I said, "Guys, if you gave me a wardrobe budget, I'd have something to change into. But since I bring my own clothes, this is what I brought. This is what I'm going to wear." So anyway, so they about that time, Jane comes in a little A-line dress with pearls, and she comes over and she kind of looks me up and looks me down and looks me up, and she comes over and goes ping on the big bracelet. She says, "Now, this is what this show needs, a little damn glitz."
It sounds like you're the only one not walking on eggshells, and that's why she sensed it and took to you.
She was great, but my favorite Jane Wyman story. When we were shooting up in Napa Valley, we would all the actors would stay at the Silverado Country Club. And the crew would stay, but we were flying in and out of Oakland, and the crew would stay at this Holiday Inn closer to the airport. Anyway, so one time when I was up there, I was just going to be up there for a day. I thought, well, I'll just stay at the Holiday Inn, and it's closer. I'm just here for a day. Anyway, I got the flu so bad, I thought I was going to die. I was really bad. And about day 3, I hear a knock on the door, and I'm so dehydrated. I can hardly. I said, "Just leave the towels, leave the towels." Knock, 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 knock. Finally, I haul out of bed, I go open the door, and there's the tiny little person with hair in a bun and a big pot of homemade soup. And
Oh,
it's Jane without the makeup, without the wig. I almost didn't recognize her. I'd never seen her without everything. And she always stayed at the Holiday Inn because she didn't like to travel. And so she would just go up there and stay, and they gave her a kitchen and everything. And she would just make home there. And she'd heard I was sick and made me this huge pot of homemade chicken noodle soup and brought it down to me. I mean, that's the Jane I always remember, just the kindness of,
Yeah.
thinking of me at that
I
time.
love that.
Yes.
I love that. That's a great
I
story.
love Jane Wyman made you chicken soup. That's fantastic.
I mean, I got an Oscar winner on my doorstep when I'm trying not to throw up with chicken
Right.
soup. So,
Right.
Morgan, I do have to ask you about one show in particular, and you guest hosted on it, Battle of the Network Stars, and you guest hosted with Howard Cosell. So I have to. What was that experience like? What was Howard like? And did the actors really take it seriously, or did they just like kind of go through the motion? Yeah.
Oh, Howard was great. Howard and I became great buddies because I think I hosted with him more than once. And I come from a family with a lot of lawyers. My uncle was a judge, my cousin prosecuted for the Justice Department. Howard is like a real, legal eagle. He and I, between takes, would sit around and discuss Supreme Court cases. So, again, he's not expecting the blonde, and so we would have a great time. And he was very funny, and I think didn't take any of it seriously. He's there doing a job, but but it was great fun. I am so unathletic. I was never going to get roped into being one of the contestants. They kept asking me, and I kept saying, "Honey, I can't do any of that shit." It's like,
Right.
let me do, And they said, "Well, would you co-host with Howard?" I said, "Sure, I love Howard." So we became great buddies with that. I loved him.
That's great.
Okay, so I want to ask you about the show Friends. You played Chandler's mom. Chandler, of course, being the late Matthew Perry.
The show was new. It wasn't a big hit, but I'd been watching it, and I thought the kids were very good individually, but also very good as an ensemble, which is kind of two different things. And so I said yes. And I remember Cicely Tyson saying, "You shouldn't play that guy's mother. You're too young to play that guy's mother." And I said, you got to make that career transition at some point. I mean, this may be a little young to play at the time, how
Yeah.
young I was. But I said, no, but I said, it's a cute show. I think it has potential. And it did.
Kind of feel like you're right about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they promoted it very heavily on me. And I was so touched because I ran into the two Matthews at, I think, a Blockbuster. There one on Ventura, maybe their lunch hour. Anyway, they came up and they grabbed me and said, "You got us in the top 5. You got us in the top 5." So it was like, but it was a fun show. Yeah, the kids were all great. I'm so glad I took that job in spite of what Cicely said to me.
Yeah.
Because I have this theory, that's always been my approach, is that every 5 years you have to introduce yourself to a new audience, a new generation. And I knew this show was aimed at a new generation. And it's interesting now when I go to things like the Chiller thing, the Chiller Fest, you'll have one set of people who come up who know you from the 80s, the Falcon Crest, the Paper Dolls, the Flamingo Roads, the North and South. And then you'll have a whole completely other set of people who love Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Friends and some of the things like that have, I mean, even though Friends has been on for quite a while now,
Right.
it's still beloved by younger people. It's nice to see that the work stands up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back a second because, talk about legends that you worked with, because you were in several episodes of Mork and Mindy with Robin Williams. What are your memories of Robin just in that show?
Well, again, do you want the story of how I got on Mork and Mindy?
Sure.
Well,
Whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, you'll regret it. Anyway, when I first got out to LA, one of my early jobs was on Happy Days and playing Fonzie's Girlfriend of the Week for Happy Days, which, 1977 is like huge. I was so excited. And that set, Henry and all those people, they're all so wonderful. So every time I was on the Paramount lot, I would stop by and say hi. Anyway, I'm over there one day and Henry says, "Do you have to go anywhere?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Stay and watch our guest star." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, I stayed all afternoon to tell the guest star he was a genius. And cut to 9 months later, William Morris calls up and it's like, "Oh, we got good news and bad news." And what's the good news? You got the TV movie you wanted. Great. What's the bad news? oh, Gary Marshall has this new show and it's all under wraps and it's a big secret and nobody knows anything about it. And he wants you to be on it, but he doesn't want to give you a contract, and he wants you to be recurring, but he only wants to pay top of show, which you're making a lot more money than that now. So we just think you should pass. And I said, well, what's the show? I said, Mork and Mindy. And I said, that's Robin Williams' show. And they said, who's Robin Williams? And there was a time.
Yeah.
And I said, Robin Williams is a genius. That's why I'm on Happy Days. Don't tell Gary I'd work for free to work with Robin Williams, you know.
Oh, wow.
So I said yes. And so I got over, and that first day, the show, again, it wasn't on the air yet. So I went to watch the taping of the show before me to see the character relations.
Mhm.
And then our first day, we get up and we start rehearsing. We do the table read. It's very funny. We start blocking. And I quickly saw that what happened is they would start with the script and then Robin would go bonkers and go off. And everybody would just stand back and watch him go. So it came our turn and we started with the script. And then he went off and I threw something and he looked at me and he threw something and I threw something and he threw something and I threw something. And he comes over to me, he grabs me up in the air and says, Mama, you're one of me. And so we would just improvise a lot of stuff. Again, thank God for the theater background and growing up with a great improviser.
You want to pick me up?
If you insist. Is that what you do on a date?
Yeah, well, whatever turns you on.
That did.
And so a lot of stuff we would just improvise on the set that first season. It was great, great, great fun. Robin was the kindest, sweetest, smartest, nicest guy. I mean, any great thing you ever thought about Robin Williams is true. I mean, just working with him, just the nicest, most wonderful, giving, kind human being. I'm so grateful for that experience.
I want to ask you about Pee-wee's Big Adventure. You were friends with Paul Reubens. Can you talk about the film? Can you talk about him?
Paul was such a wonderful guy. I first met him, I was hosting Night at the Improv back in the day. You know, they used to have a show called Night at the Improv. Sure. And there was like going to be 4 comedians, and mostly they were older people, like Shecky Green was on, I think. And they came in the afternoon for rehearsal and ran through their act, and I'm seeing what they're doing. And at the end, this little guy comes on, and not little, but I mean, and he says, I'm not going to do my act. I just wanted to come by to tell you, whatever happens, I won't hurt you. So I'm like, oh, okay. I won't hurt you. So that night he comes out as Pee-wee in costume, and he's got a paper bag full of plastic spiders and snakes and everything he's throwing around. And again, we're improvising all over the place and doing crazy stuff. And after the show, he came over and said, oh, you're the only one who got me. You're the only one who like gets me. And you just went with it. You just went with whatever I did. And I said, yeah, that's what we do. And so we became great friends. And so then one day I was doing Falcon Crest, and I got this phone call back when I had an answering service. They said, we have Pee Wee Herman on the line. Uh-huh. And I said, sure. I got on the line. I said, Paul, I know your real name. You don't have to say it's Pee Wee Herman. You know? And so he said, oh, I got a big favor to ask. I said, yeah. And he said, I'm doing my first film. And I said, well, fabulous. And he said, yeah, but we need some celebrity cameos, and everybody's turned us down, and we don't have any money. And, you know, and I said, okay. I said, when do you need me? And he said, Thursday. I said, well, let me call Falcon Crest and see if I can get off. And I said, but don't tell people you're asking that everybody else already turned you down. And he said, we have no money. I said, no, I got the no money part. It's like, okay. So anyway, I got off Falcon Crest. I show up. They're doing the ninja fight. So I took them aside. You know, Tim Burton, it was his first movie. He's the director, and Paul. We're on the back lot at Warner Brothers. And so I said, you know, guys, I've had 4.5 years of kung fu in Chinatown and New York. I can do this ninja fight for you, but falling out of a tree or something, no, because if I break a leg, Falcon Crest will sue me. You know, so right. Anyway, so we do the ninja fight, and then Jim Brolin shows up, and in the Pee-wee outfit, and we have no script. We've never seen a script. We have no sides. We don't know what we're doing, and so they put us together and say, just say, I know you are, but what am I? And Jim are like, but what does it mean? Oh, it'll be funny in context. You don't need to know what it means. It's like, we have no clue what we're doing. Anyway, so we do that little bit. I know you are, but what am I? So then we finish, and the guys say, thank you. You know, so I looked at Jim, and because we'd done the pilot of Hotel together a couple of years before, so I kind of knew Jim. And I said, you have to go to work today? And he said, no. I said, you want to do more? And he said, yeah. So we go over to the guys and say, hey, you want us to do something else? And, you got us for the day. And so, Tim says, well, we borrowed the back lot here at Warner Brothers. We don't have any other sets. What could we do here? So Jim says, let me make a phone call. So he called Aaron Spelling, and they weren't shooting on the hotel set that day, the Fairmont lobby set. So Aaron loaned us the Fairmont lobby set. And then we go over and we run over to wardrobe, and I become a spy, and Jim's a big game hunter, and Pee-wee is a bellhop, and it's a paging Mr. Herman. And that scene is like totally improvised out of the blue. It was never in a script. We never saw a script. So it was just totally improvised out of the blue. And, that's what you get to do when you're working with friends and you try to help them out.
That was the president again. I've got to steal back the X-1 before the Soviets find the secret compartment containing the microfilm. The future of the free world is riding on this one.
I'm going with you.
No, Daddy, it's too dangerous. All right, let's go.
You are such a pushover.
I know you are. But what am I?
And that kind of improvisational with Robin, with Paul, all this kind of improvisational stuff was, it was very much getting going in that period.
So Morgan, you played this groundbreaking role on Roseanne. You were Sandra Bernhard's lover.
Well, I think it was 92. Anyway, they called me up. My agent had a lot of trepidation about it. Said they wanted me, So I said, well, let me look at the script, And they send me the script. And through the whole episode, they talk about Sandra Bernhard's new girlfriend, And then at the end, she opens the door. And I thought it was hysterical that it's Morgan Fairchild. I thought it was funny. And so, and it was the first time a lipstick lesbian thing had been done on air. And I look like a homecoming queen, but I love doing iconoclastic stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be great, groundbreaking stuff, and to take the onus off of all of it, and to have somebody that's an iconic sort of sex symbol being there as the lipstick lesbian, I thought would be very funny. I thought it was funny, and apparently it scored well.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Although I then did have a lot of people ask me if I was a lesbian and stuff. It's like, it's amazing how people reacted. And there was some pushback and everything, but I had to assure my boyfriend, though. No, I didn't really. He already knew. We've been together so many years. He said if there'd been any explanation, I would have seen it already.
Right.
But it was funny in the way people reacted, and I was very proud of being able to be that iconoclast, to break that barrier, to get people talking about it, and to again break down barriers that everybody should be treated just as they are, as human beings. That's what we all are, as just human beings, whatever. And you're either a good person or a bad person. That's what we should be judged on, not any of these other issues. So
yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, I agree.
You've done a lot of stage, Singing in the Rain, The Graduate. I would love to see you in that. What do you prefer as far as the process? Obviously, one is going to pay the bills better than the other, but in terms of the experience, what's your preference?
I like all of them. I like all, they're just such different focuses of energy. When you're doing theater, well, first of all, the rehearsal process is my favorite part, because it's always so much fun, just finding things stuff, and getting to know your cast and having fun. And then you get into the run. And I've been so fortunate that a lot of the theater that I've done, we've had wonderful actors. And so the run is also fun, and you keep finding new things every night. So that's fun, but it's 8 shows a week. You only get one day off. And, when I revert, because I grew up in the theater, I revert to theater hours in my normal life. It's like going to bed late, getting up late. But in theater, your whole focus of energy all day is, building to that 8 o'clock curtain. And then it's like, boom, straight through. It's total focus of energy for 3 hours. Boom, 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 boom. With film, as you know, I mean, you get there really early, usually like 5 a.m. or something if you're a girl and have to get glammed up. And then you sit around a lot. You'd sit around waiting. And that was the big transition for me, is to train myself not to get worn out with the waiting,
Yeah.
and to be able to snap to with that focus of energy. I know on Flamingo Road, they told me at one point they were saving a lot of my close-ups and stuff for the last thing at night at midnight. And I was saying, why do you do that? And they said, you're the one we can count on that will snap to and be totally focused at midnight, no matter how long you've been waiting since 4 a.m. But it's totally different focuses of energy.
Yeah.
With film, it's a lot of inertia and then boom, deliver. With stage, it's like wait all day, slowly build up, and then 8 o'clock, boom, for 3 hours straight. But you're giving me some good thoughts. My sister and I are launching this podcast.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Yes.
It's called Two Bitches from Texas. And
what's funny is that Moosie and I almost named this podcast Two Bitches from Texas.
And this is some stuff that I should talk to her about, because she teaches acting, is like what's the difference between the focus for theater and for film.
Right.
Of course, a lot of her people are wanting to do more film, but anybody starting out, I would always tell them to do theater, because if you can do theater, you get challenged so much in theater. If you can do theater, you can do anything.
No
And
question.
I've gone on for people when I was sicker than they were. It's one of my favorite things about theater training. When I was doing the old Navy commercials, we were shooting like a spoof of The Dating Game. And I had come in early. I was the first call, and they were going to shoot me and let me leave. Well, I'd come in and done some of my tighter shots. And then some kid that was in the commercial wanted to go to a Lakers game. And so they said, oh, we're going to shoot him out so we can go to a Lakers game. I said, I've been here all day.
Yeah.
Anyway, my manager was in the trailer with me, and the dressing room. And I started getting sick. And I said, go tell them they need to shoot me out. I am going to be really, really, really ill. So she goes over, she goes, I told them you weren't feeling good. And I said, no, Betty, by this time I'm projectile vomiting. I'm just, I am in bad shape. So they shoot the kid out. I am sick as a dog, drag myself over there to try to finish my shoot. I know if I shut them down, it's going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, so the old pro, you're just trying to get through it. And I'm throwing up. I have to keep running to the ladies' room, coming back. At one point, I'm so dehydrated now I can't even make it to the ladies' room. They literally put a pail between my feet, and we're like a waist shot, and I am throwing up between takes. And my hair and makeup crew, because Entertainment Tonight, I think, was there that day for B-roll, doing something. My hair and makeup crew like circled me so they couldn't get a clean shot of me throwing up. But I just always remember the makeup guy came over and he whispered and he says, you got to tell me your secret. I've never seen anybody throw up and keep their lipstick on. But that's the thing about going through the theater. It's about the show. It's about keeping it going. It's about not costing the money. It's about keeping everything moving. It's about getting through it, as opposed to, oh, I feel bad, let's all go home.
Yep.
So,
You just mentioned it. I love the title. Tell us about the podcast and what can we expect from it?
well, thank you. It's kind of a labor of love. My sister and I, during COVID, we started having these Sunday evening conversations. When she would finish teaching acting, she would drive up to her lake house for about an hour and a half. And we had realized we'd kind of started losing touch, because both of us were working, and she's in Texas, I'm in LA, there's a time difference. So we were always feeling like we were going to bother the other one calling. So we set up a weekly call to catch up and just talk and gab for an hour and a half about whatever was going on in the world, whatever we were doing. And we kept it up. Because we realized it really meant a lot to both of us. And I started to realize also how, especially during COVID, people were feeling so isolated. But I'm also seeing, with the country and the state it is right now, a lot of people still feel isolated, and cut off from old friends and cut off from things. But Catherine and I were we grew up in the theater together. We haven't been in a production together since we were teenagers. And I just thought something we could do together. I said, let's kind of get our feeling of our conversations on Sundays into a show. And so, and it's very eclectic because I have very eclectic interests. And so, and my sister is an acting teacher, and one of her students is a lovely young man named Nick Suarez, who is an influencer with 8.5 million followers and all this. Lovely guy, and he puts his dad in a lot of videos. So he's one of our guests. He and his dad talking about, my first question is, what the hell is an influencer, and what do you do? So coming from the old broad. And then my friend Tom Nichols, who is a Russia expert who taught at the Naval War College for 25 years and now writes for The Atlantic, and is a very serious person. And then Donna Mills is an old friend, and we've worked together a few times. And I think the first episode, which goes up on October 15th, is with Donna, is the first one we're leading with. And just so it's kind of all over the place of things that interest me, people I think would be fun to talk to. Donna has a life story that I think was interesting. I wanted to talk to her about that. And so it's not necessarily talking about what shows you've done or whatever, but more process, more of your life. And hopefully people will find it fun and funny. And because we certainly found it fun and funny.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm supposed to say probably that you can get it anywhere you get your podcast, Apple and YouTube and all of that.
Spotify and all that.
It's a video. Yeah, it's a video podcast. It's not just audio. So you can listen to it, you can watch it or whatever. And to start off being twice a month as we get it rolling. And hopefully we're moving to weekly. So we start on Wednesday. So I'm assuming the next one will be 2 weeks from Wednesday, from that Wednesday, from October 15th. So, but as we get it going, I'm hoping, because I'm working, she's working, she's teaching, we're just getting it going. We're starting twice a month, and then hopefully getting it once a week.
Well, you guys are so smart by not doing anything so specific. You have a wider net as far as subject and what you're going to talk about. And as long as you're interested in what you're talking about, it doesn't matter what it is. It makes other people interested. When you're hearing somebody who's, you feel it, you feel their, interest or passion behind something, it draws you in. So, and it makes it easier too, rather than talking about something that you don't really have any interest in.
Exactly. Yeah. I think so. Our next one is we're gonna tape coming up is Stephen Tobolowsky, who's a wonderful character actor.
Yeah, Stephen's been on this podcast. He's fantastic.
I think so. Yes. I think he's So
very interesting person.
Groundhog Day.
He is. Groundhog Day, but also, just so many great movies and TV series and everything, and also just such an interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah.
And he writes a lot of books and writes a lot of things. He's just a very interesting guy.
Smart guy, nice guy.
Now, how can people follow you on social media?
Oh, on Instagram, I'm Morgan Fairchild 1. Everything else on Threads, I'm Morgan Fairchild 1 because of Instagram. And then everywhere else, I'm at Morg Fair. First 4 letters of the name, Morg Fair. And I had Morg Fair on Instagram too, but then I couldn't remember the password. And then every time I would try, they'd say, we'll send you an email to reset the password. And of course, the email never came. So I had to establish another group.
Right. Yes. Morgan, thank you. Thank you so much. You are so amazing. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not trying to just butter you up or, I'm not necessarily flirting with you, but you look so great. You look so amazing. And you're so much amazing energy. I just love it. I'm going to be listening to the bitches from Texas, or wait,
2 bitches from Texas.
2 bitches from Texas. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you guys for having me. And I'm just getting off every time they cut to you, Jonathan, about the Falcon Crest behind you.
Oh yeah.
It looks like you have a crown of thorns on.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So he's going to sign us off.
I'm going to sign us off. Okay, so again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Morgan Fairchild. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.